Introduction. The Invisible Light. Narrator. In 1 second, a man lost his sight and both of his arms, and his love story did not end. It became louder. This is the story of Alina and Andrei Smolensky. Born in the peaceful streets of Kyiv, tested in the fires of war, and reborn in the quiet rooms of a military hospital, it proves that even when the world goes completely dark, love can still lead the way forward. Chapter 1. The Midnight Fountains. Our story begins in late 2018, in a Kyiv that was still whole, vibrant, and filled with music. One crisp evening, near the sparkling fountains of the city center, a young man named Andrei spotted a woman named Alina. He struck up a conversation. Minutes melted into hours. They talked until the sky turned gray with dawn. When the morning chill set in, Andrei gently wrapped his own vest around Alina's shoulders. It was a small act, but it felt like a promise. Just 3 months later, under the open sky on a sailboat, drifting down the Dnieper River, Andrei asked Alina to marry him. She said yes. They built a life filled with laughter, music, hikes in the Carpathian Mountains, and dreams of a quiet future. Chapter 2. The Call. Then, February 2022 arrived, and Kyiv was no longer only fountains and songs. The sky filled with sirens and smoke. Like so many others, Andrei faced a choice. Driven by a fierce desire to protect his wife, his home, and their future, he volunteered for the Ukrainian military. Alina watched him leave for the front lines, carrying her heart with him. Andrei joined the infantry, then rose to sergeant in a reconnaissance drone unit, working the most dangerous zones near Bakhmut and Zaporizhia. For months, their love lived through short calls, brief texts, and long stretches of silence that felt endless. Chapter 3. The Explosion. In May 2023, inside a trench on the front line, life shattered in a single heartbeat. Andrei reached out to catch a drone. A heavy mortar shell exploded directly in front of him. He survived, but the price was unimaginable. He lost his sight. His hearing was severely damaged, and doctors had to amputate both of his arms. When the phone rang in Kyiv, Alina did not pause. She packed a small bag in 15 minutes and ran to the hospital. She found the man she loved covered in bandages, unable to see her or reach for her. But Andrei knew she was there. Later, he said that even in the pitch black, he could feel her presence. He felt her warmth, and he knew he was safe. Chapter 4. The Eyes of the Heart. The weeks that followed were not the end of their story. They were the beginning of a different kind of fight. Alina became Andrei's hands, his eyes, and his steady ground. She learned how to change his bandages. She worked alongside his physical therapists. In crowded hospital rooms, she would curl up on the edge of his narrow bed, sleeping by his side so he would never wake up alone. When asked how she stayed so strong, Alina said that Andrei had protected her by going to war, and now it was her turn to protect him. Epilogue. Unbreakable. Today, Alina and Andrei face a long road of rehabilitation and prosthetic fittings. The scars are permanent, but their devotion is too. They still laugh, they still plan. Andrei cannot see Alina's face, and he cannot hold her hand, but their bond has only grown stronger. Their story reminds us that love is not what we look at. Love is what we refuse to leave. Chapter 5. Learning the World Again. The first time Andrei stood up after the explosion, the room felt like an ocean. No horizon, no direction, only sounds and air, and Alina's voice. Step by step, she described everything he could not see. The window to his left, the chair in front of him, the cup of water on the table. He listened and he walked, slowly, carefully, like a man rebuilding a map of life from memory. Doctors spoke about nerves, skin grafts, balance, pain. Alina spoke about tomorrow, not as a distant dream, but as something they could reach with small victories. Chapter 6. The Language of Touch. They invented a new way to talk. A touch on the shoulder meant she was close. A gentle pressure meant stop. A longer touch meant breathe. I am here. In a hospital full of machines and rushing feet, their love learned a quieter alphabet. Andrei learned to recognize people by footsteps, by rhythm, by the way a voice carried in a hallway. He could not see Alina's smile, but he could hear it in her words. And he could feel it when she leaned in and rested her forehead against his. Chapter 7. The Days That Tested Them. Some days were bright with progress. Other days were heavy. Pain that arrived without warning, nightmares that pulled him back into the trench. Moments when the silence after a doctor's sentence felt too large to cross. And still, Alina stayed. Not because she was unbreakable, because she chose him, again and again. Even when she was tired, even when she was afraid, even when the future looked like a locked door. Chapter 8. The First Prosthetics. The first fittings were not a miracle. They were work. Straps, weight, pressure, skin learning to endure. Movements that had to be trained one repetition at a time. But when Andrei felt the shape of a prosthetic in place, something shifted. Not because it replaced what was lost, because it proved life could still be built. Not the old life, a new one, with new rules, with new strength. Chapter 9. A Promise Spoken Aloud. One evening, when the ward finally grew quiet, Andrei asked Alina to describe the night outside. She told him about the street lights and the dark sky over Kyiv, about the wind, about the city that kept breathing. Andrei listened, then said, "I cannot see the world anymore, but I can still feel you in it." And Alina answered, "Then that is how we will live, together, forward." Finale. The Light That Remains. Their love story did not survive by pretending nothing happened. It survived by facing everything that did. In the dark, Alina became a lighthouse. In the silence, Andrei became a voice of courage. And in the hardest year of their lives, they proved something simple and true. Some kinds of light cannot be taken by an explosion. They live in devotion. They live in choice. They live in staying.